Arsenal have started a Champions League campaign with a bang, smashing 2 goals past Athletic Club, leaving Bilbao with 3 points, 8 clean sheet and many talking points. So from Mikel Arteta's game changers coming off the bench, to a breakdown in Eberici as his first ever Champions League game, as well as another Christian Mosquera Masterclass, and Mikel Arteta's Midfield Dilemma. As per, let's break it all down and discuss the 5 things we learned from Athletic Bilbao 0, Arsenal 2. Yo, what is going on guys, man, it's Bass14, welcome back to your boys channel. After a matchday 1 Champions League victory is things that you love to see. So as per, smash a like on this video if you do enjoy and subscribe to the channel if you are new, helping your boy on the road to 300,000 subscribers. But starting off with the first thing, and that is the Midfield Dilemma. As also secured a big 3 points to kick off the Champions League campaign. Going to a ground like Athletic Bilbao is never easy. In fact, apart from a defeat to Man United last season, it's a ground that most English teams have struggled at. But for Arsenal getting a 2-0 victory with all the stats in their favour, with Bilbao only having a 0.41 XG to Arsenal's 1.34, Arsenal not only had 62% of the possession, but with 3 big chances created and 11 shots, they were by far the more dominant team. But it's the midfield that I have to focus on, as Mikel Arteta confirmed before the game that Martin Odegaard was set to be out. Come the starting lineup, Mikel Arteta went for a very safe midfield three. Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice and Mikel Merino, having seen a very similar midfield three tried at Anfield. In the case of Mikel Merino dropping a 6.5 rating, as shown by his heat map, he wasn't occupying just one part of the pitch. Allowed to drift from the right to left hand side, but with 21 accurate passes and 1 chance created, only 1 shot on target all game. For me, this was far more of a profile issue. In the use of Mikel Arteta's system, Mikel Merino is a secondary striker, a player that's fantastic in terms of crashing the box. When you think about Arsenal and their current style of play, so much of the ball kept out playing around the back, with the whole idea of being patient and luring in the opposition to open up space going in behind. Merino is not a profile that I see as a connector. When you think about Martin Odegaard and Nwaneri, they are both players that are comfortable dropping off deeper to not only create a deep overload but then also have the ability to connect to the attack. The reason why in the first half the Arsenal lacked the intent, as much as we saw the patient play coming out of the back, not only were Bilbao not falling for the traps, but there was a real lack of connection from the defence to the attack. You then focus on the performance of Declan Rice, dropping a 7.3 SOFA score rating, 47 accurate passes, 3 key passes, 6 accurate long balls and 1 big chance created. Rice won 100% of aerial duels, as well as 100% cross accuracy and 100% of dribbles completed. But the stats themselves for me create a different narrative to the player that I saw in the game itself today. While still being solid and far from a liability, I wasn't seeing the level of conviction that we saw from Declan Rice last season, having seen those performances at the Bernabeu and against Real Madrid at the Emirates Stadium. Rice is a player that has come alive in the Champions League, but in this game where there was a lack of fitness, or the style of play that Arsenal were playing, even though he was dropping deeper to play alongside Zubimendi, I still expect a lot better for a player that has set such high standards. But it all makes you wonder going into Sunday, as Arsenal welcome former champions Manchester City in their first big game of the Emirates season. Having seen the midfield three of Rice, Merino and Zubimendi, not only did it not work today, but even against Liverpool at Anfield it was way too safe. All eyes for me turned to a certain Nwaneri, having been nominated alongside Miles Lewis-Skelly for the 2025 Golden Boy Award. Despite being on the Arsenal bench today, against Forest playing in the Martin Odegaard role and dropping a 6.7 rating, you look at his heat map and the way that he was connecting our play. For me, there was no coincidence that as soon as Odegaard went off, we were able to replace him with a similar profile. Our style of play was still very expansive and very exciting. The midfield and defence had that balance, because they had that connector dropping deep to link up the play. Against Man City, a team that have of course smashed 3 goals past Man United, but shown vulnerability in games against Brighton and Tottenham, not only are we the home team, but we also have to make a statement. While I can understand Mikel Arteta's need for safety, if Martin Odegaard isn't available come Sunday, I definitely want to see Nwaneri starting. Moving on to the second thing, and that is also Spanish heist. After being robbed of £35 million back in 2016 for a certain Shkodran Mustafi, come 2025, Andrea Berta has finally got his lick back, with the arrival of Christian Mosquera for a fee of just £13 million. 21 years of age, dropping a masterclass on his Champions League debut. Valencia may have robbed us in 2016, but in 2025 it has been a pleasure doing business, as Mosquera dropped another solid 7.3 rating, 6 clearances and 1 tackle, 4 of 6 aerial duels won, as well as completing 74 passes, more than any other player on the pitch. At times it felt like I was watching William Saliba, a player that may have returned to the Arsenal bench, but with the trust that Christian Mosquera has from Mikel Arteta, he wasn't scared to start a player that's of course played at Bilbao, La Liga experience that was very useful, but also in terms of the natural self-belief. Whenever I have seen Mosquera play, whether coming off the bench at Anfield or starting his first ever Champions League game, you rarely see a player that is still only 21. You rarely find any weaknesses, and you start to understand why so many Valencia fans were so angry when Arsenal secured the signing for only £13 million. But that's why of course you have to talk about the impact of Arsenal in previous years. for a player that was intent on only going to Arsenal. As Mikel Arteta confirmed before the game, we are very lucky that players want to come to Arsenal now, and they prefer to go to Arsenal than somewhere else. This is an unbelievable power that we have built and gives us our very best chance. But talking of defensive bargains and players that Arsenal have signed that are well beyond what Arsenal paid for them, can we give some respect to Jurrien Timber, dropping a 7.4 sofa score rating, with 2 clearances and 5 tackles, 7 of 11 ground balls won, as well as 2 chances created and 1 key pass. The prime example of another complete right-back performance. Not only so solid defensively, but also impactful every time he's gone forwards. Not only was this a very high standard performance, but in many ways is Jurrien Timber's baseline, a player that has been super consistent over the course of the last year of playing for Arsenal. When it comes to Timber, he's a player that has many strengths: composure on the ball to carry forwards, self-belief to go into challenges, knowing that he's going to come out on top. But by far his biggest superpower has to be his level of consistency. A complete fullback that is getting stronger game by game. Still only just 24 years of age, by the way. You have to start asking the question, when it comes to being the most complete right back in the world right now, is that Jurrien Timber? But also for Arsenal in terms of the defensive depth. In a game with Raya, Timber, Mosquera, Gabriel and Calafari were all solid, Lewis Skelly sat on the bench and Capie coming on as well. Not to even mention William Saliba. The fact that we can thrive without one of our best centre-backs. Still only concede 1 goal all season. The defensive depth for me is by far the best in the world. Moving on to the third thing, the secret weapons. In a game where Arsenal started the front three of Eberici, Eze, Victor Gyökeres and Nwaneri Madueke, for Gyökeres it was his first ever Arsenal Champions League starts, that he was averaging a goal involvement every 87 minutes. In terms of today's performance, dropping a 6.6 sofa score rating, with 1 shot on target and 3 off targets, as well as 2 big chances missed, he was definitely in the walls, receiving a massive cut on the back of his head after colliding with Gabriel Magalhaes, but still finding a way to continue and playing in the bandage. At times looking like a Cobra Kai sensei, this was for me a very promising performance. A striker that I still believe needs to improve his technical security, but when it comes to increasing the speed of how Arsenal attack, every time he gets the ball there is real intent. Intent to drive him behind, intent to go and score goals. In this game I do believe that he should have scored his header, but in a game that Arsenal lacked a real connector in midfield, no Martin Odegaard and not starting Ethan Nwaneri, I think Mikel Arteta realised towards the second half, it was time to add a bit more balance. So enter the frame a certain Leandro Trossard, playing as a centre forward and dropping an 8.3 rating, with 1 goal and 1 assist, 14 touches and 3 accurate passes. The Arsenal front three finally had a level of balance, having now had 52 goal involvements since signing for Arsenal in 2023, only behind a certain Bukayo Saka. Last year was not Trossard's season, but having now been put back into a squad role, where his ability off the bench is clear to be seen, an assist off the bench against Nottingham Forest, followed by 2 goal involvements against Bilbao. When it comes to being a game changer off the bench and a bit of a secret weapon, that's where Leandro Trossard comes alive. But likewise a certain Gabriel Martinelli. After receiving a Trossard assist, he returned the favour just minutes later. For a forward that seems to thrive when it comes to scoring goals away in Spain, from that goal against Sevilla back in 2023-24, to even last year that goal at the Bernabeu. Let's just say the storyline was written, as Martinelli came off the bench and dropped an 8.3 rating. 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 out of 2 dribbles, and only 1 pass completed all game, being awarded the official Champions League Man of the Match award. The goal itself is trademark Martinelli, sharp enough with explosive speed running in behind. The first touch may have been dodgy, but Martinelli's unique style of dribbling allowed him to carry the ball forwards and place the ball into the back of the net. And the goal itself was important not just because of the results, but also because of the reaction. From Ricardo Calafari celebrating so heavily, the entire Arsenal team around the play. You even had Gabriel Jesus on his Instagram with a caption of "Good brother, you deserve it so much." For as much as Martinelli is criticised, the Arsenal squad still value him very highly. Not only by far our most quickest player, but coming off the bench with a point to prove. Today we saw the real impact of elite squad depth. With the likes of Trossard and Martinelli being starters last year, but this year able to come off the bench and impact against tired legs. We've talked about the idea of having a squad for years and years, but to now see it in action, see players come off the bench and make an impact straight away, because they want to break into that starting 11, with the Martinelli starting with Eberici, Eze, Victor Gyökeres or Kai Havertz. When you've got that level of depth on the Arsenal bench, Mikel Arteta will always have a few secret weapons to bring on and change the game. Moving on to the fourth thing, and that is the Eze problem. Making his first ever start in the Champions League at 27 years of age, dropping a 7.1 sofa score rating, with 2 successful dribbles and 1 key pass, 7 of 11 ground balls won. When I mention the word problem, I don't mean in terms of performance. In fact, in that first half, whenever Eze did receive the ball, he was by far one of the most threatening attackers. But it's more a problem in terms of how Mikel Arteta is using it. When you watch Ricardo Calafari play behind him, yet clearly you see far more freedom than the far more dangerous Eberici Eze. In this game, time and time again, Eze was isolated, holding the width on the left-hand side, with no real intent to go and find him. In certain games where Arsenal have the ball in the final third constantly, Eze is going to be important. But when you now have the quality of a player that is a Maverick in that final third, I don't want to see Eze turn into a Jack Grealish. A player that was a Maverick at Aston Villa, cost Man City £100 million, but under Pep Guardiola became a bit of a robot, because he never really played to his strengths. In the case of Eze, not only are Arsenal adapting, but I'm looking towards Mikel Arteta. When you watch the role of Ricardo Calafiori, Mikel Arteta clearly likes the idea of freedom, but is he giving it to the right players? When you've got the quality of a player like Eberechi Eze. Then you had the performance of Nwaneri Madueke, dropping a 6.4 so far score rating, playing on the right hand side, with 2 shots on target and 3 successful dribbles. Not a single key pass all game. I'm not going to overanalyze the performance, but one thing I definitely will say, for all the talk that Arsenal had to move Bukayo Saka to the left hand side, because Madueke thrives on the right, this game was an example of why Saka deserves more respect. A player that also has that same ability to beat his man, but unlike Madueke's current age, Saka has a far higher level of end product. At just 23 years of age, it's only right for Madueke to have games like this. By no means am I saying that he was struggling, but the whole idea that he can start over Bukayo Saka on the right hand side tonight was a bit of a reminder that that is still far from the case. But moving on to the 5th thing, the Champions League favourite. As Arsenal made it 4 wins out of 5 to start the season, with 5 games played, 4 clean sheets and only 1 goal conceded, that of course being that wonder goal at Anfield, to see the strength and quality coming off the Arsenal bench. As perfectly pointed out by James Bench, a year ago, that Martinelli to Trossard move might have been Sterling to Butler or Oyedeji, but to see starters of previous years become bench players, this performance wasn't even that special. At times Arsenal was sloppy, focusing way too much on playing out of the back, refusing to get the ball into that final third. When you've got our elite ability to defend, if your team has the firepower, you're always going to have a chance. Watching 2 players come off the Arsenal bench, both get goals and assists, I think a lot of Arsenal fans can say with chest now, we really do have a squad. So when it comes to the Champions League and the chances of winning it, according to the XG philosophy, Arsenal are the 3rd favourites, behind only Barcelona and Liverpool, joint with Paris Saint-Germain. But you then think about tonight's result and Leicester performance, the fact that Arsenal were far from their best, yet were still able to go to Spain and get the job done. Don't forget that we are still without Arsenal's Mr. Champions League in Bukayo Saka, a player that has scored 9 goals and had 6 assists in 16 Champions League appearances, the most goal involvement of any English player in their first 2 seasons in the competition. As perfectly summarised by David Raya, we have belief, we want to win, we are Arsenal. We want to play to win, we play to win. There is no doubt that that is what we want to do. The intent for Arsenal is certainly there, and the thing that is even more beautiful is the players that are about to make a return. Take for example William Saliba sat on the Arsenal bench today, in the same week that he made a full return to training. Focus now turns to Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka, with Mikel Arteta confirming before the game that Odegaard wasn't travelling with the Arsenal squad to Spain. You wonder if Mikel Arteta was protecting the player, having seen Arsenal lack the connecting profile tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if Odegaard is involved in the game on Sunday, with even a return for Bukayo Saka pending, as Arsenal's games come thick and fast. The next 6 being Man City at home, Port Vale away, followed by Newcastle away and Olympiacos at home, then West Ham at home and Fulham away. But that is the video there and there, so hopefully you guys have enjoyed. If you have, don't forget to smash a like and also subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you want to follow your boy on all over social medias, the links are down below in the description. But that was the 5 things we learned from Athletic Bilbao 0, Arsenal 2, a fantastic victory, a clean sheet and a Martinelli goal. It is things that you love to see. And my friends, I'll see you next time. Take care. In a bit.